Hello, everybody. This is Karen O'Donnell coming to you from our YouTube channel, Code Nurse. I am very excited to have one of our nursing colleagues here, Chris Recinos. I wanted to first of all just talk a little bit about Code Nurse and what we are. We are a group of healthcare professionals, mostly nurses, who have become entrepreneurs, inventors, and are leaders in the nursing world as well as the business world. And we want to inspire other nurses who have ideas, who want to become entrepreneurs, and to tell our experience of how we've become successful. So Chris is one example of that. Dr. Chris Recinos. She is the CEO and founder of Nurse Leader Network and TIKIDAS, an educational platform for nurses. She is also the creator of the mental health app for teens called Hello Harmony. Her former roles include Chief Nurse Executive for Kaiser Permanente in South Bay Medical Center. She has been Deputy Nurse Executive for the Veterans Administration in a variety of academic, nurse practitioner, and registered nurse roles. And in her spare time, she can be found advocating for suicide prevention policies. So thank you so much, Dr. Chris, for being part of this.
I am so thrilled to be here. This is awesome. I have been looking forward to this interview for a while, so I'm glad to be here.
Great. So if you could just kind of start by telling us how you became a nurse.
Yeah, so my journey actually started when I was like 5 years old. I remember like walking by a hospital and I'd see like nurses and like candy stripers. And I was like, oh my gosh, at 5 years old, like I knew I wanted to do that. I was like nursing all of the pets and the animals and kind of thought I wanted to do that. But, I actually grew up in foster care in Los Angeles and ended up becoming pregnant at 14 years old. And I had my baby, and the way they do it at that time, or the way they did it at that time, was they would drop off the kids, me, at the hospital, and then we were there to give birth alone, and then we would come back, to the foster home. And the only person I really had there with me was my nurse, and she was just super kind. And then we had a nurse back at the group home that I lived at, and she like literally taught me everything. She taught me how to bathe my baby. She taught me how, like, I literally was still playing Barbie dolls myself. Okay. But she taught me how to do really everything. And I knew at that moment I wanted to pay back nursing. And so once I graduated high school, I, went directly into a nursing program. Now, fun fact about that story. So that nurse that inspired me all those years, I never forgot her. I never forgot her son. She used to have a son that she'd bring that was kind of cute. And when I became the chief nurse executive at Kaiser, I was giving an award, like my first or second month working there, I was giving an award to a group of one of my units. And there was this nurse that looked at me, and I looked at her and I was like, oh, I worked with her. Like I used to work with her. And she's like, where do I know you from? And out of nowhere, we both like started crying. And I realized it was that nurse.
Wow. Oh my God.
Inspired me. I actually became her nurse executive. And so full story, she was able to really see, she's like, I had no idea it impacted you that way. I said, most people don't.
Yeah, it's so true. Oh my gosh, what a story. Wow. So tell me a little bit about how you went from, say, floor nurse to nurse manager and up the ladder.
So mine was non-traditional. My whole life has been non-traditional. I wanted to actually initially become a CRNA because I did a rotation in school in the OR, and I was like, oh, CRNA is for me. Like there was a really cool CRNA who had, he would like drove derby cars and all this like cool stuff, and I was like, that's my life. And I couldn't get into the ICU because they had no ICU positions at the hospital I was applying to after graduation. They had positions in the ER. So I worked in the ER, and I was like, okay, I can't get into a CRNA school. Like, what's next best thing? And I became an NP. Okay. So I became a nurse practitioner, and within 8 months of graduating and working, well, not of graduating, but of working, my medical director of the clinic I was working at, my nursing director, my CFO, the CEO, they all left. Every single person left. And since I was the only one left that like kind of had some knowledge, the board of directors was like, hey, do you want to do this? And I was like, is it legal? Like, I'm a nurse practitioner. Can I really run a clinic and this budget of $10 million? I don't know. And I became one of the first medical directors that's a nurse in California.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it was totally accidental. I never wanted to go to admin. I thought they were the devil. And just from there, it blossomed. My husband was a veteran, and the Veterans Administration ended up reaching out. So I ended up working there, where I kept clinical practice and I was also an administrator there. And
Mhm.
then my daughter became ill, so I needed to come closer to home and ended up at
Mhm.
Kaiser, which was fantastic. I loved it there.
Yeah.
And I oversaw the entire region. So I oversaw all of Southern California in my regional
Wow.
role, and then was promoted into the chief nurse executive role. So I never like planned any of this. I thought I was going to be a nurse practitioner till the day I died. And
Mhm.
then I never thought I would leave administration once I was in admin. And in September of last year, um, we had some unfortunate events happen with one of my children, and I needed to really reevaluate where I was at in my life, and decided to open up my own business. And so that's where I'm at now. I've been running my own business since September, and it has been the best decision of my life. And
Wow.
I've been able to pull in every single little piece of my career that I've had.
Wow. So tell us about your business.
So I have several. I actually started off with Nurse Leader Network. So as a nurse executive, I realized there was a huge disconnect between the tools that my staff and directors and managers needed to be successful and what was actually there. Now I
Mm.
work for a huge company, right, Kaiser Permanente, and they had an enormous amount of resources and tools, and the managers still had a gap. And so I began to see that that was everywhere. Like every place I'd ever worked, every nurse I had talked to, it was just a gap. They just didn't have one single place where they could go and say, okay, I need information on crucial conversations, just in time training, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
I decided to create a company that did just that. So I have a membership group where the Nurse Leader Insiders, where nursing leaders, whether they're in the hospital, the ambulatory, academia, or entrepreneurship, can come together and get all of the tools that they need in one place. We do office hours so they can come and like meet with me, or I bring in experts from different organizations to come and talk to them, and
Yeah.
then they have their own like community of people. So
Yeah.
it's really cool. And then from there I launched TIKIDAS, which TIKIDAS is, for those of you who've heard of Udemy, it's a place where nurses can go on and receive whatever training they want in clinical practice, in academics, like how to write a research question, in personal speaking, personal development, in self-care, how to take care of myself and balance, all of those kind of things, in entrepreneurship as well. They can go and learn anything that they need, and they can get CE credits for this. And I have nurses worldwide right now that are working on the workshops to do the teaching. So it's very similar to that model, and we'll be launching that in December. So right now we're getting all the content up there, and then it'll be a membership where you can pay a small fee and receive whatever amount of training that you want on a variety of topics that are related to nurses, and get your CEs while you're doing it. So I
Wow.
have that. And then lastly is my app. So I was in a nurse hackathon last November, and my daughter, the one that I had at 14, actually passed away to suicide 4 years
Mm.
ago.
I'm so
And
sorry.
so I developed an app with my husband for suicide prevention in kids and teens. And so we're working on that app, which is also expected to go beta in December.
Wow. Wow. That is amazing. I'm so sorry for your loss, but I think that you took um, a lot of initiative to be able to turn it into a positive experience, in terms of just being able to help other people. So that's amazing. It really is. So talk a little bit about Hello Harmony. Just tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So Hello Harmony, I actually we signed up for the hackathon, and I was like, I have no idea. We're just gonna join somebody's group. And
Yeah.
then there was no groups because I was too late. I had worked really late that day and didn't sign up for a group. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm signing up for my own group. And like I literally called my kids and was like, hey, what do we like what do you guys think? Like what's kind of cool, or what should our mom invent? And like as if I had any clue. And my oldest daughter, my at the time she was 18, she was like, Mom, why don't you create like a suicide app like for Harmony? My daughter's name was Harmony.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, that's smart. And so I called the other kids and I was like, tell me about what you like in your apps. Like, I want to know, what do you like about the apps that you currently play with? Because I wanted
Yeah.
to make it not educational, but something that they could like play as in terms of a game. So they,
Mhm.
mentioned like, I don't want ads and I don't want this and that. And, we want to be playing a game. And so
Yeah.
we really used all of their feedback to begin to craft this. And so what it is it's a chat bot. So they basically develop an emoji that is their friend, and they pick like hair color, style. They pick the things that their friend likes, what sports, or maybe they like, watching movies, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then they enter into a conversation with this artificial intelligence that talks and speaks just like they are. So it's we use natural language processing. So it's going to be talking like if it's a 10-year-old using the app versus a 21-year-old using the app. But they enter into a game together where they're playing, and then they begin to have these conversations around mental health. So the idea is that we begin to normalize these conversations of mental health and introduce the language. My daughter, some of her friends knew she was going to take her life and they didn't know what to do, and so it really gives them the language and then gives them steps for how they can help somebody who's struggling. But it also identifies kids that are at risk. So the app will collect data before the user begins to use it, and if they're at risk, we're going to be having some facilitation where they'll be introduced to services right at that point, so that we could potentially save lives.
Wow, that is amazing. That really is, and you've come such a long way in terms of being able to have that beta process going. So I think that is unbelievable to be able to come up with an app. And who knew that you could do that? Right?
I know, right? I'm like the only video game I know how to play, okay, is Super Mario Brothers from the 1980s. But I think a takeaway from that is you don't create something for somebody without that somebody there. And so, I didn't create this app alone. If I would have created it on my own, it literally would have been like probably a bunch of like books that the kids could read, like write something they're not going to use. I actually had to have the stakeholders there as I created it so they could look at it and play with it and say, no, I don't like this. Yes, I do like this. And I think that's a problem that a lot of nurse entrepreneurs face, is that they have this wonderful idea. They're either afraid somebody's going to take it, or they're just so focused on building it that they build it without the users in the process. And then when they go to launch it, nobody uses it. And so, I think that's one takeaway around, if anybody's there and interested in becoming entrepreneurship, involve the people right away that you're hoping to serve. Start using the language they're using. Start looking, you need to solve the gap it is that they have.
Yeah, absolutely true. And one of the things that the last interviewer and I were talking about is nurses are not salespeople and not marketers, but we do a lot of educating just on a daily basis of anything that we're doing, whether it's patients, whether it's doctors, whether it's, respiratory therapists. We are just talking to them in terms of educating them. So it is natural for us to just kind of market ourselves without necessarily saying that we're marketing. But I think that terminology is a little bit more comfortable to just say, I'm educating people. I'm just telling them what I'm doing. That's all it's about, so that I can take the pressure off myself to try to sell something to somebody. It's just, we're just talking, we're educating you.
We sell stuff all day. We sell health. That's what nurses do. We sell health. We sell it whether you're the one collecting the money directly from it, from the patient, or whether you're getting a paycheck. You are selling health. So, I mean, that's the nature of our business. That's what we do. And I like to tell people, like, by being shy about sales or offering what you're offering, how many people are not living the life to their fullest because they need what your service is. You are a unique and special person, and you have something that only you can offer to the world. So how many people are missing out on that because of your shyness, or because we're not comfortable? We got to break through that, because it's our job to help others.
Absolutely. So you've already talked about, what you feel nurses need to do in terms of, trying to move an idea into a business. But if you were that new nurse who has an idea, has an invention, has a thought, a little glimmer, and wants to go to the next step, what would your advice be for that person?
I would say to take my route. And my route was, I literally found this book. There's this podcast that I started listening to called Smart Passive Income. And it's run by somebody named Pat Flynn. And he has so much free material. It's like absolutely amazing. And he wrote a book called Will It Fly? And that book takes you through your idea and testing the idea, so that before you actually go to market and invest any resources in it, there's going to be sales, that it's going to be something that is sustainable. And so I really took my idea of Nurse Leader Network as the first one that I ran through it, and went through the book and that steps, and realized that it was validated. This is something that people are going to invest in. Here's the thing. The thing is that when nurses think about businesses, we tend to fall into a couple different categories. So one is where it's more of a hobby business. And so those are businesses where we have the expertise, we enjoy doing it, but we're not talking to the players with money. You
Mm,
have to have people that have money that will invest it. So for example, like if you're a hobbyist and you're teaching people how to do a low cost scrapbooking,
mhm,
if you're putting in low cost already, those are not the players with money. That's not a business that's probably going to be making a sustainable amount of money.
mhm,
So that's one side of the coin. And the other side is really making sure that there's a need and a gap that we're addressing in addition to the players with money. So it can be fun for us, and you can have all the expertise, but is there really a gap that you're solving?
mhm,
Now, what I do hear a lot is folks say, well, there's already somebody in this space. And when there's already somebody in this space, that's a good thing. That means there's a market for it.
mhm,
There is enough nurses to go around. We have 24 million nurses on the globe, and not one company can service all of them.
mhm,
And not one company can service them in every way that it is that they're looking for. And so when you see players already in your field, one that I am beginning to see a lot of is in nursing burnout. I've had people say, I don't, there's already people in nursing burnout. Guess what? And that means there's a market for it then. So
mhm.
don't take that as like, oh, I can't do that. Sometimes you want to be concerned when there's nobody in there, because then why is there nobody that's already thought about this
Yeah.
business, or is there just not sales happening in that business?
Mhm, mhm. So if you could share with us your information of how to find you, how to find your information, that would be great.
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, Chris Recinos, ChrisRecinos. You can also find me on my LinkedIn, which is nurse underscore leader underscore network, so Nurse Leader Network. Or you can check me out on www.nurseleadernetwork.com. We have tons of free tools. If you're somebody who is interested in any type of leadership, it doesn't need to be a formal leadership position, but if you are a leader, whether that's at the bedside, as a student nurse, we have tons of free information. And you can check out my podcast, Nurse Leader Network with Chris Recinos. And we are on Apple and Spotify, everywhere you find a podcast, but we have tons of great interviews on Nurse Leader Network podcast as well.
Awesome. Chris, thank you so much for being a part of Code Nurse. We are really, really fortunate to have you. You've done amazing work and you are going to continue to do amazing work. And I can't wait to check out your podcast because I know that there's going to be a lot of good information. And I really encourage everybody to be a part of it because the more nurses that can support each other, the better our community is going to be.
Awesome. This has been a blast. Thanks, Karen.
Thank you so much. All right, we'll have another interview in the near future so that we can see what other great things that you're up to, so that we can also find out how Hello Harmony is doing.
Awesome.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.